The insane failure of Desert Warrior 2026. You probably haven't heard of Desert Warrior. And here's the thing, almost nobody has. Which is exactly the problem. Because this movie had a $150 million budget. It had Anthony Mackie fresh off Captain America, it had Sir Ben Kingsley, it had an Oscar pedigree director, and it opened last weekend to under $500,000 at the box office. Not $500 million. Not $500,000 opening day. Under $500,000. Total, opening weekend, on over 1,000 screens. That's under $500 per screen. For an entire weekend. To put that in perspective, a mid-sized cinema showing one sold-out screening of Avengers Doomsday on a Friday night probably made more money than Desert Warrior made across the entire country over 3 days. This is one of the most catastrophic box office failures in Hollywood history. And what makes it truly insane is that this wasn't some low-budget indie that got lost in the shuffle. This was supposed to be a nation-building moment. Saudi Arabia's big swing at becoming a serious player in global cinema. Their answer to Hollywood. And it cratered so badly, so publicly, that it might set that entire ambition back by a decade. So what happened? How does a $150 million movie make less at the box office than some films make from a single afternoon screening? Let's get into it. The ambition behind it. To understand the failure, you have to understand what Desert Warrior was actually supposed to be. This film was initially poised to be a milestone in cinematic history, the first major Hollywood-style action epic filmed entirely in Saudi Arabia under the ambitious vision, 2030 initiative, led by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Saudi Arabia has been on this aggressive campaign to diversify its economy away from oil. You've seen it in sports, Live Golf, Premier League ownership, Formula One. The idea is to turn Saudi Arabia into a global entertainment and tourism destination, and film was always going to be a big part of that. Embassy saw Desert Warrior as an anchor for a nascent film industry being established in the region where key crew members were brought in to effectively train and develop Saudi crews learning about the industry. So this wasn't just a movie. It was infrastructure. It was a statement. It was Saudi Arabia saying, we can do this. The feature has been 6 years in the making. Producer Jeremy Bolt took the idea to British director Rupert Wyatt back in 2019, and Wyatt is a legitimately good director. His film Rise of the Planet of the Apes in 2011 is genuinely great, one of the best blockbusters of that decade. He was a credible hire, a serious filmmaker. Not a director for hire they grabbed off the lowest bidder list. The story itself had real potential too. Desert Warrior is set against the backdrop of pre-Islamic Arabia, following the rising tensions between Arab tribes and the Sassanid Empire. A princess escapes imperial control and becomes the unlikely force binding divided clans, leading them into the historic Battle of Dakar, described as a decisive conflict that reshapes the balance of power in the region. That's a generally epic premise. Lawrence of Arabia territory. The kind of sweeping historical saga Hollywood used to make all the time and basically doesn't anymore. There's a real audience for that kind of film if it's done right. The production was a nightmare before it even started. Here's where it starts to unravel. It was the first tentpole movie to film at NEOM, Saudi Arabia's massive new media hub. But the construction at NEOM was not finished when production began. The crew had to build a temporary soundstage in a hotel parking lot. Let that sink in. A $150 million movie. And they're building a soundstage in a parking lot because the actual studio facility they were promised didn't exist yet. On-set insiders say NEOM Media was effectively laying the infrastructure for an entire industry on the budget of Desert Warrior. Equipment got stuck at Saudi border control. Laborers built roads just to transport gear. Crew members were hired from all over the world because of the absence of a skilled local workforce. So a massive chunk of that $150 million wasn't going on screen. It was going on roads, tents, equipment logistics, building the literal foundation of a film industry from scratch. The budget reportedly started around $70 million before COVID, and delays pushed it to $150 million. Much of that extra money appears to have been swallowed by problems that had nothing to do with making a great film. Producer Jeremy Bolt, a guy who's produced the entire Resident Evil franchise, so he's not someone who scares easily, admitted the film was the hardest of my career, saying of, the shoot, There was nothing there. No infrastructure, no crew, and no equipment. We had to bring everything in, and often from other countries. Despite all of that, Wyatt actually got the shoot done. It was only about 4 days over schedule by the time they wrapped, which for a film of this size is a real achievement. Word spread about spectacular footage. Mackie and lead actress Aisha Hart were reportedly delivering strong performances. Maybe, somehow, they were actually going to pull this off. Then, post-production happened, where it all fell apart. During spring 2023, NBC wanted Wyatt to reduce Desert Warrior's runtime by around 20% to fulfill contractual obligations. Disagreements about the film's tone were also said to be part of those conversations. Reports suggest the studio wanted something closer to a crowd-pleasing Braveheart-style action film, while Wyatt was pushing for something more nuanced. That tension between a director with a vision and a studio that wants a straightforward hit is one of the oldest stories in Hollywood. Usually it resolves one way or another without destroying the film entirely. Not here. Accounts vary on exactly what happened. Some say Wyatt was fired, others that he went on hiatus or refused to comply with demanded changes. Either way, he was off the project. The film sat in limbo for years. An early test screening held in 2023 with an unfinished cut had already produced troubling feedback, raising deeper questions within the industry about whether Western-produced films centered on Arab narratives carry broad commercial appeal. Eventually, NBC agreed to restore full creative control to Wyatt, who delivered a new director's cut in September 2025, with an earlier version apparently having been completed all the way back in 2021 or 2022. So the film that finally reached audiences in 2026 had been completed, then dismantled, then reassembled over the course of roughly 4 years. It didn't even premiere until its gala screening at the Zurich Film Festival in September 2025, more than 3 years after filming ended. By the time it got to theaters, any momentum was completely gone. The release was almost designed to fail. Even setting aside the production chaos, the release itself was a mess. Vertical Entertainment picked up the domestic rights in early 2026. It's a small-time distributor. For context, Vertical is the kind of company that releases films directly to VOD and gives them token theatrical runs to generate awareness. They are not the partner you want if you're trying to launch a $150 million blockbuster on the global stage. Then there was the timing. Cinemagoers don't have the appetite for a film about a desert war in the middle of a literal desert war, one observer noted. NBC reportedly considered pushing the release date, but the company was reluctant to delay again after years of false dawns. So they released it anyway, into a market with no meaningful marketing, no momentum, and a geopolitical backdrop that made a Middle Eastern war epic feel like the last thing people wanted to watch on a Friday night. The film didn't fully connect with Arab viewers, nor did it appeal strongly to Western moviegoers. It fell into a gap between two audiences and satisfied neither, and the reviews reflected that, sitting at around 29% on Rotten Tomatoes at time of writing. Even in its home market, Desert Warrior ranked 8th at the box office in Saudi Arabia on its opening weekend. 8th, at home, for a film that was supposed to be a national pride moment, where this leaves Saudi Arabia's Hollywood dreams. Here's the question that actually matters beyond the box office numbers. What does this mean for Saudi Arabia's vision? 2030 entertainment ambitions? NBC executives are reportedly weighing how leadership will respond to the loss, and whether the kingdom's appetite for big-budget theatrical filmmaking will survive this setback. The situation echoes Saudi Arabia's recent retreat from heavy investment in sports ventures, including its relationship with Live Golf. The irony is that Desert Warrior wasn't entirely without value. The production is credited with helping build meaningful filmmaking infrastructure within the region, technical expertise, crew development, and production pipelines that could benefit future Saudi projects. They spent $150 million building an industry. They just appear to have lost sight of making a film anyone wanted to see in the process. Wyatt, for his part, described Desert Warrior as perhaps one of the last in-camera, on-location action epics, and you can feel that ambition in the footage that has been shared publicly. The cinematography reportedly looks stunning. The scale is real, but stunning cinematography and real scale aren't enough. Audiences need a reason to show up, and nobody gave them one. Desert Warrior is now a cautionary tale that will likely be studied in film school and business school alike. A movie that was too ambitious for the infrastructure supporting it, too fractured by creative warfare to survive post-production, and too badly distributed to find an audience. Even if it had cleared every other hurdle. Around $150 million in, under $1 million back, and a nation's Hollywood dreams, at least for now, on hold. That's the insane failure of Desert Warrior.